Hi, this is the last weekly roundup of the year, and that means it's Christmas time. If you live up top, then Christmas time is all about snow falling, wood fires, and generally trying to get warm. But I'm from down under, where Christmas time is all about 50-degree heat waves, barbecues, and trying to stay cool. Where was I going with this? Ah, that's right. So I thought I'd come down here to the beach and do it down here, see how it goes. So over at Kickstarter, things are a little bit quiet. They must be all indoors. I don't normally cover desktop fabrication, but this is a new one. They could have used the world's first in the title, as it is the first desktop electroplater. The price is pretty steep, and I have no idea on the actual results, but seems to be a fully fledged product that would be useful for 3D printer jocks. They claim it can electroplate a variety of metals with the coating as thick as you want, or controlled by a mobile app. So this next one is solving a problem, I think. It lets a Sparky know instantly if a GPIO is live or not using a mobile app. Personally, I prefer the old-fashioned method that was hammered into me when I was young and stupid, which is 1. Turn off the power yourself, 2. Remove the circuit breaker and lock the power box. This next one has a great name. The Obnoz sounds like you're trying to say hobnob with a cold, but is actually another IoT board based on the ESP32. It also comes with an OLED and MOSFETs, allowing you to drive up to 1 amp on GPIOs. They offer a cloud-based service that allows you to control 12 GPIOs from the ESP via JavaScript and Node.js. Their claim of world's first cloud-based development board isn't true, but it's a good option if you want to hack around with internet-enabled electronics quickly. This next campaign was created by Dan Alich, who's created a number of successful STEM education kits on Kickstarter, some of which have made it onto other websites. The Duino kit Tiny is based on an AT-Tiny85 with USB bridge and onboard 5-volt regulator, allowing it to be powered from 7 to 35 volts. There's also a bunch of sensors, buttons, and OLED display. If you're looking for a beginner's kit, this one seems to be a goer. And yes, it had to happen, a Nixie Tube watch on Kickstarter. Wonder what the battery life is like. Oh, they claim a month between charges. Okay, better than most smartwatches. If you're into D-Star, DMR or Fusion, then this board might be interesting. It's a 6-channel AMBE vocoder. AMBE stands for Advanced Multiband Excitation, and a vocoder is a codec designed for human voice, allowing it to be compressed and transmitted over a digital medium. The price is steep, but if you're into this sort of thing and want a multi-channel vocoder, it looks pretty good. StitchKit is another take on Adafruit's Flora and SparkFun's LilyPad. In fact, they contain the same Atmega 32U4 MCU as the StitchKit. They claim it can drive 300 RGB LEDs at full blast from a power bank connected via a USB Type-C, and it seems to be pushing out 9 GPIOs, but it's not that clear. The URPC is a campaign from someone over the pond who likes to eat fish and chops. It's a board designed specifically for PC installs or home theatres, allowing you to control a 6 amp RGB LED strip, 5 amp NeoPixel strip, 4 servos and 4 PWM outputs for fans. There's also a temperature sensor and rotary dial, and you can talk to it over USB serial. While over at Crowd Supply, the craze of let's make everything as small as possible is still with us. In pre-launch, the Tomu is possibly the smallest USB-capable Cortex M0 board, so small that it fits inside the USB connector, and because of this it only has 2 LEDs and 2 capacitive touch sensors, but looks pretty neat. Then there's another NAS box in pre-launch. It's unclear what SoC they are using, but it's definitely a custom PCB with a dual-core Cortex A7, 1GB RAM, Gigabit Ethernet, SD and eSATA. It's designed to connect and sync files stored locally to a Nextcloud-based cloud service that's been up and running for a while now. The MSP430 is a pretty cool little MCU that's been around for a while now. They offer features that exist in the Atmel SAMD and STM32 lineup, but with some fairly impressive low power modes of 1 microamp in standby and 16 nanoamps in shutdown. If you want to check out one of these MCUs cheaply, then head on over to TI's website where you can pick up a full dev board for only $4.30 US. Man, it's getting hot. If you really want to get into 8-bit MCU design, then over at Hackaday the Gigatron is now offered as a kit, which gives you everything you need to build and program your own 8-bit MCU using only discrete TTL ICs. And here's a novel idea: connect the pins of an LED matrix display directly to an ATtiny2313 and power from a coin cell. You can actually build this without soldering. Nice. Another interesting Hackaday project that's been around for a while. This one is for a flexible smartwatch. Looks really promising, but there hasn't been any update since May 2017. That could mean he's either given up on it or he's going for a patent. Want to build an ultra tiny RF tracker? This one is a tiny OOC RF beacon that pings every 2 seconds, and 180 microamp average current draw. It has some limited but useful use cases. And the friendly guys are back with another SBC to round off the year. They've released the NanoPi Core and Core 2. The Core runs an all-winner H3 SoC with 256 or 512 meg RAM, 8, 16 or 32 gig eMMC, SD, and seems that they took my suggestion of providing more GPIOs and have pushed out 54 of them onto the 3 24-pin headers. Whilst the Core 2 is the same, except it runs the 64-bit all-winner H5 with 512 meg or 1 gig RAM and gigabit Ethernet. Both boards come in at 40mm squared, which is a tiny footprint. They are also selling the Core Mini Shield, which can fit either of the Core modules, breaking out Ethernet and USB onto connectors, but also a USB to SATA bridge based on the JMS 567 and M2 slot for anyone wanting to chuck in an SSD. The Shield is the same footprint as the Pi and looks like it might fit into a standard Pi case. This next one was from Linux Gizmos. It's a series of DIMM style boards that run an Altera Max 10 FPGA. There are 4 modules. The base module, coming in at €45, is pretty much just the Max 10 and nothing else, all the way up to the €132 board with 4 gig eMMC, 512 meg RAM and RTC. All boards have programmable logic levels from 1.8 volts to 3.3 and LiPo charging. These modules are designed to fit into the Spider Base carrier board, which has 4 PMOD headers, Arduino compatible headers and prototyping area. The AT-SAM W25 is a Wi-Fi module similar to the popular ESP, but contains a separate SAM-D21 and Wi-Fi chip, so your code doesn't have to fight with CPU cycles like the ESP. Gumsticks has come out with a USB-based board running the SAM W25 as well as humidity, temperature and motion sensors. It's a bit pricey at $86 US, but yet another option for you. Over at CNX Software they mentioned a couple of new rack wireless modules. The Rack 813 is a Bluetooth and LoRa combo module based on the NRF 52832 and SX127X ICs. It has castellated holes breaking out 13 GPIOs, 2 UFL connectors and runs off a 3.3 volt supply. Then there's the Rack 811 running an STM32, SX1276 LoRa module and U-Block's Max 7Q GPS module. Designed for long-range GPS tracking, it also has LiPo charging and pushes out 20 GPIOs. Then there's a Wiz LTE, which is an Arduino form factor board running a Quectel BG96 module, which gives you eGPRS connectivity and GNSS or GPS support. It behaves like an Arduino Uno, so I expect there to be some decent libraries for this soon. This next one is pretty cool, unlike where I am at the moment. Man, it's so hot. This is one project I had on the back burner this year. It's an inline self-powered device that lets you know the water temperature for only $10 US. Nice. At that price you'd be stumped to make one yourself cheaper. I've actually ordered a handful, so expect these to be hacked pretty quickly. I just need to go for a swim. I'm so hot. Let's get... And over at Indy things are heating up a little bit. The Crazy Circuit starter kit is something that came from a successful Kickstarter in early 2017. It's a way of building circuits using conductive tape and Lego bricks. This kit gives you some basic bits and pieces to get into circuit building. From the same Indy store, there's a DIY kit to build your own solar charging box. Comes with 3 2.6 amp hour batteries, solar cell and other bits to build a complete charging box. If you want a quick, fully encapsulated IoT device, this one gives you a LoRa module and STM32 built into an IP67 rated enclosure. It also has 21 GPIOs and 4 amp hour battery. And if you're into board games like my family is, you know what Munchkin is. Well, I guess I beat it then. 2 for me. Really? This is a simple but cool Munchkin level counter. The Tremoco is another LoRa and SAM-D21 LoRa combo, but this one can use either the RN2483 module, which has an onboard LoRaWAN stack, or the cheaper RFM95W LoRa module. Comes with LiPo charging and most of the GPIOs broken out. Powering LEDs from an MCU can be a tricky business. This simple breakout board for the DMN6040 makes it a little easier for you. With appropriate heatsink, you can switch up to 60 volts at 20 amps, or at normal 3.3 volt logic levels, can switch 5 volts at 8 amps. Back on Weekly Roundup number 45, we saw the Squix, or however you say it. This is an e-ink display module. Well, now you can pick one up from Indy. If you want to be able to program a bunch of 8-bit Atmel MCUs, then this one will do the job on almost all the AT-Tiny series, and some of the ATmega series. Has 8-pin dip socket as well as 6 and 10-pin ICSP header, so it probably has the capability to program more than listed. Here's another RGB LED strip controller, but this one talks MQTT and has a bunch of pre-programmed effects. While this breakout has a 3-channel programmable LED driver running off I2C, not only can you directly control LEDs via PWM, but enable pattern sequences with no CPU overhead. A dual thief circuit is a pretty cool little circuit. It allows you to pull almost all the charge from an otherwise dead battery. This version will light up 6 LEDs for 100 hours from a single AA battery. Really, I need to go for a swim. And there's a bit of Christmas action happening from the major storefronts. Over at IT, they have released a smaller version of their Sonoff Smart Socket called the S31. As far as I can see, it's identical to the S30, but smaller. Over at Seed Studio, they have the AI7688H module. Similar to the other Linkit module, it runs Linux on a MIPS 24K SoC and has Wi-Fi, 400 megabit Ethernet ports, PCIe and a bunch of GPIOs wrapped in a small castellated module. Good to see prices of 3G modules coming down. Still a little pricey, but this one has a 3G module allowing you to do some funky things like RF sniffing and spectrum analysis within the 15 MHz to 2.7 GHz band. This one is designed for the Pi, but you can also get this one for the Arduino. Adafruit have finally come out with their Itsy Bitsy, which is an ATmega 32U4 based board, so of course has inbuilt USB support. They have 2 versions, a 5V power and logic version, and a 3.3V power and logic version. If you saw my live Christmas tree game video this year, I used a 64x32 RGB LED matrix, which I bit bashed the RGB signals to light up the LEDs. And yes, I did it the hard way. Or you can always get this board designed for the teensy, which can handle all the grunt work for you. Over at SparkFun they have a 3DOF IMU based on the H3LIS331DL, that's a mouthful, which has some pretty decent specs, able to measure up to 400 Gs at up to 1 kHz sample rate, and capable of withstanding 10,000 Gs. It's something that you'd have as the basis of a crash cam recorder in a vehicle. Powered from 3.3 volts, it can draw as low as 10 microamps. And this is a pretty handy package, capable of delivering a steady 5V 1A DC supply from a 6 to 28 volt input at 91% efficiency. So almost as good as a buck converter, but in a smaller package. And this one looks pretty cool, unlike me at the moment. A flexible grayscale OLED display. The 160 by 32 4-bit grayscale display is accessible over SPI, and all you need is a 5V supply. Over at DF Robot they have a LoRa board that handles all the complex protocols when operating within a mesh network, which isn't LoRaWAN but another protocol entirely. Powered from 3.3 to 5 volts and communication over UART. It's a fairly decent all-in-one package. DF Robot are adding to their Fire Beetle add-ons. This one allows control of 4 DC motors or 4 servos or 2 bipolar steppers. Runs off the Fire Beetle DC supply with an external motor power supply of 4 to 12 volts. It can sync a continuous 1.2 amps per channel, although I'd expect there to be some decent heatsinks on it at that current draw. There's also a 915 MHz LoRa module cover for the Fire Beetle, which would make my LoRa SMS project a whole lot easier. You also have several choices of external antenna. And over at DigiKey they have an ST Micro Bluetooth module running 4.2 of the Bluetooth stack. Runs a Cortex M0 with 160 kilobyte flash, 24 kilobyte RAM, and can be powered from 1.7 to 36 volts. They also have some Wi-Fi modules comparable to the ESP32 but without Bluetooth, and running an STM32 Cortex M4, so potentially has much lower power consumption. And over at Pololo they have a bunch of linear actuators in. They're all pretty expensive, with the cheapest being a little over $200 US. But if you're in need of moving stuff automatically, then these will do the job. Okay, that's it. I'm going for a swim. So that's about it for this year. Thanks to everyone supporting me through Patreon and directly. Without your support, I certainly wouldn't have this channel still up and running. Next year looks promising. I've lined up more projects, tutorials and reviews, and now I have a few sponsors, so you'll be seeing a couple of in-stream video ads running. So thanks for watching, and see you next year.